Hey, welcome everyone to our second class on Bereisheet, on these opening days of creation. We are going to jump in with day number 3. All right, and what we're going to learn from day number 3 is that it is something different from what we've seen so far. They're trying to say which one of these is not like the others. Well, to remind ourselves, day 1 was God separated from, he separated the dark and the light, creating light, and that was considered good. Day 2, he's separating the waters, and there is no mention of it being good. Okay, now we're into day number 3. All right. I'm on, everyone see where we are? Yeah, so it says here, Vayome Elohim, Yikavu Hamayim Mitachat Hashamayim El Makom Echad V'tera'eh Hayabasha Vayhichen. And God said, let the water below the sky be gathered into one area, and the dry land may appear. And it was so. Vayhichen. And it was. Okay, so God said it to be, and it was the appearance of the land. Vayikra Elohim Hayabasha Eretz, and God called this dry stuff Eretz, land, Umikveh Hamayim Karayamim, and he called the gathering of the waters, he called those Yamim, he called them seas. Vayar Elohim Kitov, and God saw that it was good. Okay? Roger is online, by the way.
Well,
there we go.
He found it very interesting, so he said he
Okay. Well, hi, Roger. Vayome Elohim, and God said, Tache haaretz deshe, esev mazriya zera, etz peri, ose peri limino, asher zarovo al haaretz, vayhichen. And God said, let the earth sprout vegetation, seed-bearing plants, fruit trees of every kind, on earth that bear fruit with the seed in it. And it was so. ותוצא הארץ דשא עשב מזריע זרע למיניהו, ותוצא פרי אשר זרעו למיניהו, וירא אלוהים כי טוב, וירא ויבוקר יום שלישי. And the earth brought forth vegetation, seed-bearing plants of every kind, and tree of every kind bearing fruit with the seed in it. And God saw that this was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, a third day. How is the third day different from the first and second days, friends? Esther?
two aspects to creation.
Yeah, absolutely. There are two things being created and two things which are being mentioned as being good. Okay, so God creates two things. He's creating dry land, and he is God is having vegetation. All right, and that is worthy of God saying it is good, not once but twice. Yeah, okay. What did God see about the dry land and the gathering of the waters? That was why is that such a good thing? That God separates that God forms the land. What is it? I'm just trying to understand. If the second day we had a problem because God is separating waters, and I got my upper waters in the heavens or in the sky, and I got my lower waters, which are my seas and oceans. What is so good about the formation of land? I mean, I get fruit and grains and seeds.
For people. Yeah, walk on it. Right.
Okay, so good. So what we're saying here, I like that, Sherry, is what is the purpose of creation? The creation of human beings. And so therefore, the waters by themselves are going to be unhelpful or will not be beneficial to mankind. But what is beneficial to mankind? Light, so that's good. Having land, that's good. Having food to eat, That's good. Water by itself, I need to drink it, but it's only once it's formed in a certain area. Then the water, by its association to the land, its relationship to the land, becomes good. So yes, exactly right, Jerry. If I see the purpose of creation, the tachlit, the purpose of Maaseh Bereisheet is the creation of man, then all those things are good.
And I
Okay.
was discussing the water with our little ones, and they too, and I asked them why they thought it wasn't declared as good. I always think that the insights of little humans are the most valuable. And they said, one, because it's never really complete. The water cycle means that there's no water that ever stays here, ever stays there. So they're never really separated. And to further prove that the color of water is only a reflection of the heavens. And so it's never fully separated, so it's never fully good. So if I take their theory and compare it with this, water and land, you can mix them together, but they're always going to be separate, right? You can always tell the banks of the river and where it is. But the water, you can never say it's always going to be right here.
Very nice. I like that a lot. All right, so here we can see that either we can see there's an incompletion with the water, or that everything is directing towards creating a perfect world for human beings to exist in. Okay, so either answer is going to work for us moving there. Jeff, you have a point?
I was going to say that then you could go back to the rakia, and you could say that then doesn't serve a specific human purpose. That's why it's not good. It's not that it's bad. It's just not for human. It's not a human purposed
right
item.
And therefore it doesn't get it doesn't get the moniker of good. Right. What's interesting here is who is deciding if it's good or bad? Hashem. Okay, so that's an important thing. I want you to keep that in your mind's eye as we go through. It's not going to be relevant today, but I want you to have it in the back of your mind in a couple of weeks that it's God who's able to discern between good and bad. Okay, when we get into the story of the Eitz Hadat, Torah, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, okay, of good and bad. You know, what is it about Adam, of mankind, eating from that is the ability to discern between good and bad. But I'm just foreshadowing for a couple of weeks. John.
What mankind is has already been defined.
Mm-hmm.
It's not subject to change, because otherwise you wouldn't know if it's good or not. Why isn't it necessary for us to eat food? Because that's what we do. But if we didn't have to eat food, then we wouldn't need food.
Right. So this is the big problem with Judaism in general. Torah less so, but Talmud very much so, which is what assumptions are made of what you already know. So here, there's an assumption that you know what a human being needs to live. And so therefore, and for sure, God knows that it's good because God knows what human beings need to exist, what will benefit them. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't sound like God. Is it God-based design? Is it man-based design? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that there's a bunch of preconceived notions.
There are preconceived notions.
And there's no particular reason to believe that they are good notions.
Right. We have to define what is good. And it has to be, and what I'm trying to suggest in my mind's eye is that good is good for human beings as we know it. Is there a possibility that this good, this tov, could be, forget human beings, it's just good? What does good mean? Good for who?
It's beneficial, but it's also beneficial to animals.
So it could be good for animals. Animals also need to know the difference between light and dark. They also need to know the difference between land and sea, and they also need to eat. Correct. All organisms need to have certain things. They're all going to procreate. They're all going to, have waste matter. They all need to search for food. They all need shelter. There's certain things which all which all animals need. So you could definitely see that. But I'm saying, is there something here, a higher good? Is this tov something more spiritual, more ruchani, perhaps?
I can think of something, Rabbi Hassan.
Yeah, go on.
It was mentioned in today's Daf Yomi page that there's a revelation when the land was always there, and the water's on top of it. And when God moves the water away, now the secret is revealed. And the same thing with the plants. If you read what it says the earth brings forth the plants. It doesn't say God creates the plants. So the plants were already there, and then they come out of the ground. And so in these two actions, there's a revelation of a secret. There's that which is hidden is now being revealed, and that's why it's good.
Excellent. That's a very profound statement, Rob, which is that all these things were ready before creation. God had all the precursors. He had all the building blocks already set up. For example, when people say, is it the chicken or the egg? Very much the chicken, very much fully made man, very much fully made trees with fruit on them, very much seeds ready to come out. Like it's chickens first. Like, and this is all good because this is what it's designed for. God is making things ready to go, and it's just, there's no growing pains, there's no struggle. Everything's ready formed. Okay, good. I like that, but I like this idea of also, Rob, what you're saying there of revealing the secret is also good, which is the darkness coming out will, is also very good.
Can I raise one more thing?
Yeah.
So the verbs so far that we've really seen are vayomer and vayikra, except for on day 2 where we have vayas. And that's the only place where that verb is used, at least so far, and it also doesn't say that it's good. Everywhere else it says it's good. And so I'm just wondering, you've made the translation God said in all of the cases, but vayas is a differentiated verb. So what's that? What's the difference there?
I also got vayavdel as well.
Yes, he divides, but in terms of the creation, correct, dividing.
Yeah, vayas, God made the rakia, and he separated between the waters. And he called the rakia shamayim.
So vayas, that is from oseh, that is the making. So it's the only place here where there's an act of creation, not directly from speaking.
Correct. He's doing it right. It's not coming into being by itself. It has to make it. And that would be surprising that the thing that God makes isn't going to be tov. Which is, again, I'll leave that with Tzarich Iyun on that question. But I like the concept here of the verbs being used. It's definitely vayomer is the keys, but there are going to be some vayases. And you're going to see a vayas he made on day 4. And it's interesting that the ones which are doing with making things so far, the next making is going to be making the sun and the moon and the stars. And guess where they are? In the heavens. So it could be the heavens requires some kind of making, which is different to just speaking and allowing to being. But I don't have I don't have a full proof text on that one. So let's have a look at day 4. So Yom Revi'i, it says here, Vayomer Elohim, and God. Sorry?
You didn't get your last question.
Well, I'm not going to ask all the questions on there. Sometimes I just
I think that it's
on
an
the
important
sheet.
question because
Okay, go on.
this is the first life that has been created, or as you were saying, revealed. And I think that is like an extraordinary thing to point out, that it is the first thing that can self-perpetuate. Obviously, God plays a role in that, but the plants then bear the fruit. So God has just empowered the next thing to be doing its thing.
So what's interesting about that, and I wanted to actually compare and contrast that to bird life, animal life, and humankind. Bird life, animal life, and humankind are all blessed with peru of being fruitful and multiplying. Fruits, grains, and vegetables are not blessed to give forth their seed. So there is some kind of different notion to vegetable life, fruit life, seed life, than there is to animal, bird, fish, human life in that degree, which we need to address. But undoubtedly, providing food source, that is a good thing. Is it seen as life itself? In some ways, yes, but not necessarily intelligent life. You know, I mean, how far do you want to take it with fruits and vegetables and grains?
I'm
Even
not trying to give them intelligence. I'm not trying to, debate a Venus flytrap or whatever. Like that's not, but it's something that produces itself. Yes, I think that is the important piece, that water doesn't create itself. All the water that exists in the world God created, and land doesn't create itself. That all was created on that day of creation. But all the trees outside right now were not created on that day of creation. They were created from what was created, and only they can do that. So to me, that's an important distinction.
I mean, the ability to recreate oneself is really powerful here. And you're right, these are the first ones who are going to be able to recreate themselves. But it's a question whether they are included in the blessing of Pura Revu, or they have to wait until later on to get that blessing of, are they doing that yet? But it's
And
interesting.
they
Yeah,
are also
Esther.
necessary for survival. I'm sorry, were you going to talk?
That's okay. I just wanted to say that there is the aspect of human intervention, of human caretaking of plants, and the potential is there. The word potential, I'm sure, is going to come up as we get closer to day 6. But all these other things are for plants and planting things, motzi, lechem, the difference between aretz and adama, all of those things. So the vegetation implies human intervention of some sort for it to maximize.
Right. As in, does it matter if there are trees, if there are fruits, if there are vegetables, there are seeds, if there are no human beings to look after them, eat them, protect them, destroy them even? Does it make a sound? Exactly. Hard to establish. But again, it seems to me, from a human being reading the text, that this creation is all of acts of creation are designed for humans. Doesn't mean to the exclusion of others, but primarily it seems that they're for human beings. And therefore, even though these are good, and even though they can, bear more fruits and more seeds, it doesn't really matter. They're all in potential, and as Esther said, until animals are going to come into being, and certainly waiting until man comes into being. Okay, let's look at day 4. And yeah,
why we think that mankind is more important. It should be served this way.
Yes, we're going to get that. We're going to see that a lot in day 6, in the end of the chapter, and we're going to see it specifically the beginning of chapter 2. Okay, No, John, absolutely. It's going to come very self-evident in the text. And it's very clear that this is a special, separate creation, and there's 2 descriptions of the creation of man, and there's 2 descriptions of the jobs that man has. Okay, and we're going to see. Correct, absolutely. Yeah, and so that's what we have to figure it out. Do we have a self-elevated version of ourselves, or is it no? That's what the text is driving at. And again, if it's a godly text, which is one of the things which we're trying to put as one of our fundamentals before we begin, then the concern of, are we writing our own destiny? Are we creating ourselves as the center of the story? I think that's something which theology had to struggle with in the Middle Ages, when they figured out that the earth is not the center, that the earth does not go around, that the sun does not go around the earth goes around the sun, that the sun is just one planet amongst many, many, sorry, the sun is just one star amongst many, many millions of stars, that we are not the center of the world, that was a struggle. To me, it doesn't really matter if we are the center of the universe. But on life on Earth, it seems to be that human beings are the center. Why that is, we're going to have to wait till we get towards the end of day 6. As we like to say, it's 3 minutes to midnight or 4 minutes to midnight. If you're going to go on a 24-hour clock of when humankind is created in the history of the universe, it's like we're right at the end. All right, day 4. Vayome Elohim, and God said, Yehi me'orot birkia hashamayim. Let there be luminaries in the firmament of the heavens, or the expanse of the sky. Lahavdil comes again to distinguish or to separate bein hayom uvein halayla, between the day and between the night. V'hayu le'otot u'lemoadim, and they shall be for signs and for the holidays, uliyamim v'shanim, and for the days and the years. As in, people will use the sun and the moon to calculate and make their calendars. V'hayulim arot birakia hashamayim leha'ir al haaretz, and they shall serve as lights in the firmament of the heaven to shine upon the earth. And it was so. Vayas, there you go, Jeff. Elohim, and God made et shnei ha'me'orot ha'gedolim, the 2 large luminaries. Et ha'ma'or ha'gadol memshelet hayom, the larger luminary to serve the day. Ve'et ha'ma'or ha'katon lememshelet ha'layla, and the lesser one to rule over the night, or to serve the night. Ve'et ha'kochavim, and the stars. Vayiten otam Elohim birkia, hashamayim la'ir la'aretz. And what does he add there? I'm having problems turning over my pages. I don't know why. To dominate the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. Okay? V'limshol bayom ha'uvalayla, u'lehavdil bein ha'or u'bein ha'choshech. Okay? And so it's going to rule over the day and the night, and to separate between the light and between the darkness. Vayar Elohim kitov. And again, once again, God saw that it was good. Vayerev vahivo keyom revi, and it was evening and it was morning on the 4th day. This whole description here, which I'm trying to do, and I'm sorry that I'm struggling with my page turning, I'm not sure why, but what is happening here? That God set them in the expanse of the sky to shine upon the earth, and that these sun and the moon and the stars and everything else, and it's there for us to calculate. It's already, again, in Sherry's point of view, okay, which John, I know it's very self-centered, but it seems everything is being created for humans to use, that they can use the moon and the stars and the sun to make calculations, whether to navigate, whether to for traveling, whether it's for making calendars. That's what they're there for. But there's something very strange going on here. What is this phrase that we have where this word memshelet? What do we want to translate memshelet as? Sorry?
Govern.
To govern. Okay? The translation you have here is dominate. Okay, memshala is a governing, is like ruling over, serving. Sometimes you want to think of it as. But have you noticed that there's two large luminaries, and then it says there was a larger one and a smaller one? Is there a contradiction there? There were two large luminaries.
Yeah, what contradiction are but
So look at the text carefully, and then I'll show you them, and then I'll teach you the Midrash.
Okay.
The Midrash, it's a Midrash. The Torah says, "Vayas Elohim," and God made Shnei HaMe'orot HaGedolim, two large luminaries. And then he says, Ma'or HaGadol, the large one to serve the day, and the small one to serve the night.
Well, yes, like two large ones, but there's a big one and a small big one.
There you go, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
So according to the Pshuto Shel Mikra, exactly as you said, Jeff, there are two large ones, a bigger one and a smaller one. According to Midrash, there were two equal large ones, and God made one of them smaller. Why? Why would there be a larger and a smaller? Don't need so much light at lifetime is perfect. But what happens when I have two people who are equal? Competition, absolutely, competition. There's going to be one saying, well, who's going to be the bigger one? So according to Midrash, the moon asked that question. Again, we're talking Midrash here. We're not talking about real events. The moon does not speak. But the moon says to God, who's going to be the bigger one? And God says, oh, since you asked, you can be the small guy.
except in the moon's defense, the moon gets to have governance over both the night and the stars.
Correct.
And the sun only gets the day.
Correct. And more importantly than that, the moon is what's wound up in Rosh Chodesh, is wound up in the primarily the Jewish calendar. The sun is only there to make sure that we stay in the seasons, because we don't want to have our holidays out of season. But primarily we are a lunar calendar, which focuses a little bit with the sun just to keep us in the right season. But what is going on? What are we trying to understand? There's many ways of metaphors of understanding the moon and its phases and its waxing and its waning and its gibbouses and its crescents and all that kind of stuff. There's lots of relationships between the woman and the moon, but they're understanding that nature of the Midrash of whenever there is going to be competition, whenever someone is going to say, who is going to be superior? Hashem goes, oh, you want to be superior? You can be diminished. But it's also telling us there is always competition. No matter what you want to do, there's always going to be some friendly rivalry, if I'm putting it nicely, or someone or something or some organization or some group that you measure yourself across and you say, are they as good as us? Am I better than that person? Are they doing it better than we are? Is that school better than my school? Is that synagogue, dare I say, better than my synagogue? All those types of competition things that we have in our heads. Is that person smarter than I am? And it's something which we have from when we're very young. And maybe we can work on ourselves as we get older, but it's probably somewhere deep down, there's something nagging at us. And that's what that Midrash is coming to teach us. That Midrash is not coming to teach us that originally the moon and the sun were the same size and the moon spoke to God. That's not what it's teaching you. It's teaching you that there is always competition. And there we go. And interesting, if you actually want to look more about that whole story about the moon, that when the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh involves God bringing a Korban Chatat. And why does God bring a Korban Chatat, a sin offering? According to rabbinic tradition, because he made the moon small. That it wasn't fair that God decided the moon should be smaller than the sun, so there shouldn't be competition. But that is, again, very Kabbalistic, very Midrashic, and it's moving far away from where we are with creation. Shana.
one, if we're working with Melrose, that it is a luminary.
Mhm.
Last I checked, the moon is not luminary.
Correct. So that's a huge problem, which I was waiting for someone to say. And thank you, Sharona. The moon does not provide light. The moon reflects light.
That's one. Two.
Well,
so-
but all light is reflected. You only see light, it doesn't reflect. If it's not reflected, you don't see it, it's called black.
Okay, fine, but okay, true. But
You're saying it's not manufactured.
it's not a source of light. It's not a source of light.
It's not absent and present.
Correct. Is it all right? That's fair. I like that, John. Okay. And your second point?
Okay. From the beginning, we have Arab and Bokeh.
Oh, I was hoping someone wasn't going to mention this.
Oh, and then it goes
The-
shine and then.
Oh, wow. I never thought of that. So this is perhaps one of the most perplexing questions, or is the number one source for why you need to know that creation is not 24-hour periods. Because how could it be 24-hour periods if the sun is not created until day 4? That's number one. And number two, as you said, the moon is not a source of light. And this is the whole ringer of whoever wants to take creation, the 6 days, literally as 24-hour periods, why it's never going to work. And how this Torah here is not explaining the how. This again, it's going on the why. The why is God decided to create mankind. And in order to create mankind, he created a world for them. And this is how he did it in these stages. And he's teaching us lessons throughout these verses. It's not necessarily this was how it came to be. How it came to be, scientists are still figuring it out slowly. Esther.
Well, two things. One is that, again, if we look at this from the point of view of man and animals, we look up and we see light. We see that the moon shines and we see the sun. So from that point of view, they're both middle road if you take it from the anthro.
Okay.
If that's a word. And the other one, I don't know when this is gonna again come up because we have Erev and Boker, evening and morning, and then we have Yom and Lila, day and night. And we have them from the first day, from the first,
Mhm.
right?
So everybody evoke it. So it started, yeah.
So there's the difference between,
Again, if I could suggest, translate Yom stage,
oh,
4th stage, 5th stage, 6th stage. It's unsatisfactory because we use Yom to mean day everywhere else. But it cannot be 24-hour periods. There's light on dark on day 1. And it was dark first and light second, and that's why it's Erev and then Boker. But this doesn't fit.
my question is more, which is evening and morning are different. There's stages in that have meaning that we place on them as human beings, but light and dark, day and night it's a little different, no?
Absolutely. I think their light and dark does not need to be day and night.
Right.
Okay? You can have a solar eclipse during the day. Okay? Okay, or you can live in Seattle and the sun can be gone for 4 months of the year, maybe 6. But we're moving away from the most difficult to understand, which was the day 0, 1, and 2, to things which are more definable. But I want to still tell you, we are going to have in this class questions which have no answer. I don't have a truly satisfactory answer. I can direct you to scientific religious books, like I mentioned last week in the beginning, and Fossils and Faith, and you can read them. but nothing's really going to answer our question of reading it on just a text base. It doesn't really jive. I don't understand it. It just can't work. And sometimes those are just questions. And if we really care about our questions, reading a book isn't going to answer them. And hearing an answer from a rabbi, no matter how convincing he wants to sound, isn't always going to give you the answer. Sometimes it's just part of struggle in life, is I'm going to work on that and figure that out and try and get to something satisfactory. All right, let's jump in now to the 5th day. And we'll see. I think it might well be that today we finish day 5, and we're going to leave our whole discussion about mankind and the purpose of creation, John, until next week. I'm just trying to keep you for another week. So, and then I'll tell you next week we'll do it the following one, because you really want to stay for the tree of knowledge. Anyway, so the 5th day, this is where we're going to get into the first time that we have this phrase vayvarech. Okay, that God is going to bless. So it says, starts again in the same language we were expecting of Vayomer Elohim. God said. Okay, so again, think about this. It's all about God saying. There is the Vayaz making, but the primary phrase is the primary verb being used is the speaking. God says, Yishratzu Hamayim, let the waters swarm or teem. Sheretz nefesh chaya, v'of ye'ofef ha'la'aretz al pnei rakia hashamayim. Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures and birds that fly above the earth across the expanse of the sky. So let there be lots of birds in the sky, and let there be lots of aquatic life. Vayivra Elohim, and God created. Et hataninim hagedolim, the great, I'm going to translate there, the great sea monsters. I don't even know what I want to say. It's taninim, it could be the great blue whales, is what we try. Blue whale is probably the best for tanin, but today. But the way we translate it in English is normally Leviathan. God created these 2 huge aquatic animals. That kol nefesh hachaya haromeset asher sharetzu hamayim lemineihem et kol of kanaf leminehu vayar Elohim ki tov. We got that one again. And God created the great sea monsters and all the living creatures of every kind that creep, which the waters brought forth in swarms, and all the winged birds of every kind. And God saw that this was good.
Why do you say 2, by the way?
2 what?
2, you mentioned 2 of these.
Oh, I'm going to get into Midrash soon.
Okay.
Maybe
So
another time.
It's just
Taninim, just plural, correct. But something, taninim hagedolim, some plural large things, correct. Vayvarech otam Elohim lemor, sorry. And God blessed them, saying, Puravu, be fruitful and multiply. Umilu et hamayim bayamim, and fill the waters of the seas, fill the waters in the seas. Va'of yirev ba'aretz, and let the birds increase on the land. It's interesting, on the land as opposed to in the air. Vayer vayivoke yom chamishi, and it was evening and it was morning on the 5th day. So here's our questions. God does something new on the 5th day. What is the new thing that God does? God blesses this new life, this new bird life, this new aquatic life. What does it mean to bless? What do you want to say about that? We'll talk about our tiny name later. What does it mean to bless? So I think Sharona was trying to mention it before, that blessing, Puravu, is not just be fruitful and multiply. I'm going to give you the blessing that you can do an act of creation yourself. Can you imagine that? It's not, God creates all these things. It should be that God is continually creating by creating more birds and more fish and more fruit and more trees and more seeds. No. God creates and then blesses creation with the ability for them to procreate themselves. Okay? That you can partner in creation and not just human beings can create, which is what you would say, John. It's all about man, it's all about me. No, even fish, even birds. And as Sharona wants to say, perhaps even trees and grains, although they don't get the blessing, but the ability to procreate, the ability to create, to be part of creation is given over, dominion is given over to them, that they can do that. Thoughts, comments? No one thinks that's a radical idea?
No, it's not that.
I mean, the idea of what is God doing? You know, I have this question often comes up with teenagers. You know, where's God right now? We know that he involved himself in creation. We know he spoke to the Avot and the Imahot. We know he was very busy during taking the Jews out of Egypt in the 40 years in the desert. And then slowly he backs off and backs off and backs off till we barely hear about him today. What's God doing? God is allowing for creation. God is allowing for creation to still continue, or is allowing the laws of nature to work. God set up a world of nature where humans can procreate, but everyone can procreate. Every organism can procreate. That is a powerful lesson, powerful teaching going on there.
So you're the biology student. So I don't have this as a background, but it does seem that all of the animate creatures all require some form of coordination to produce procreation, where plants do it themselves.
Right? The
Right?
wind's going to carry it away. It's all going to happen.
Right. It's not. It doesn't require. There's no partnership involved. I'm trying to be cryptic, but
Okay.
there's no fertilization. There's no not from
intentional.
Not from this same species necessarily. Like bees can produce pollination that's part of the process, but it's not a tree and a tree producing a tree. It's a tree producing a tree.
Well, it's a tree and a tree, but it's based on the wind and not the tree making a choice to.
Correct.
Yeah, it doesn't require any sentient thought to allow it to happen.
There's some difference there. I mean, there's a clear difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's possibly why they don't need to have that blessing established to them. Perhaps the blessing is implying that it is difficult and it needs beracha to be successful. Not just in the.
Which means it's not, you use the term allowing, but what's Hashem doing now is allowing, but maybe actually what Hashem is doing is blessing. Like that, the active is not, it's not a passive role, it's an active role, it's a blessing role.
I like that a lot.
I'm struggling with at what point is the event of creation. I just don't understand. What differentiates creation from normal operation? When cells divide, is that creation?
Or is that something else? What do you want to say?
Yeah, I don't, is it?
What are we saying? Mitosis or meiosis? What is the difference?
Well, I'm actually going closer to the protein level. You get this protein,
Okay.
and they combine and break apart. Is that creation? What is the event that says this is creation rather than it's just?
Is it creation something from nothing?
That's what we talked about on the first class, that yesh me'ayin, something from nothing. or creating something which has never been seen before. No, bringing life.
It's nonsense.
I don't think it's nonsense. I just think I don't have a good answer necessarily straight off the top of my head of what makes something creation versus something else cell division. I don't have a good answer.
Or just combination.
Combinations of. I think the defining it. I think comparing it to something else, bringing something which has not been there before. I don't know. What I want to take out is I mentioned that there was a strange midrash about the Taninim. Let's take it offline because I don't think it's relevant to a close reading of the text. And so if it's not connected to the close reading of the text, I think it's off the table for right now. What we're going to do is we're going to pause now, and that's going to be the end of the second class. Thank you, everyone.